Thing is, he was very stingy about player immersion and set up a significant rule. The players were not allowed to read the rule books.
What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to chase after them?
RPG Horror Stories by Azure Philosopher. You stole my waifu! It's just the title alone. Mwah! Beautiful. An exercise in lack of self-awareness. This is a story from a few years back when I still studied at university. My gaming group consisted of a mix of study mates and older friends, all aged in their early to mid-20s. The group was great, and it still keeps together even nowadays, about 8 years later. Well, except for one guy. A classic that guy, with a particular lack of self-awareness. This is the story about the many red flags that he raised and him ultimately leaving the campaign. Yeah, that's good. I like a good group of buddies. You didn't let one bad apple spoil a bunch. That's advisable. The first big campaign that we played together used the Anima Beyond Fantasy system, a niche and kind of obscure Spanish tabletop that is basically high fantasy on Super Coke. Highly recommend it. We still play it. Doesn't fit my taste. I like low fantasy. You know, our good buddy, friend of the channel Ramtide made Blood and Thunder, which is a low fantasy setting about pirates. There's holy magic, there's tribal magic, superstitions, mysticism and skepticism, and enchantments, I think, is another one. But yeah, it's all stuff that could feasibly exist in real life. Nobody's shooting fireballs from their hands. You make a little voodoo talisman and slip it under somebody's pillow. Hope it doesn't backfire on you, which it often does. You don't get something for nothing. Oh, you slept and recovered all your magic points? That's nice. You want to deal with unnatural powers? You might get some unnatural results. Anyway, Blood and Thunder, super cool as far as tabletops go. That's the one I'd recommend, and you can get it right now on ramtide.itch.io. There's also waifus and weirdos if a one-shot neckbeard adventure is more your thing. And there's also So You Wake Up Naked in a Field with a Rock, which is basically whatever you want it to be. I'm sure Ramtide would like it if you gave him money. He's having a baby soon after all. But you don't have to. Go to his itch page, grab him if you want. Tell a friend, word of mouth is valuable. And as his friend, yes, those are the words from my mouth. Thank you for the very easy plug, OP. So our OP was the ST, which I guess is like the GM for their Anima Beyond Fantasy game, and they had 4 players. Charlie played a surprisingly deep barbarian from the far north with a penchant for eating raw birds, occasional cannibalism, and hacking people to pieces with war axes. Yep, all barbarian things.
I would like to rage! Rage, please! Raging!
The second player, Jacob, rolled a hardcore survivalist and martial artist from a jungle country that acted as the grown-up in the group. Jacob was probably the greatest player in the campaign, and his character went through an amazing evolution, but that's a story for another time, and definitely another subforum. Thirdly was Jake, who played a circus runaway wizard psychic. Yes, that is a thing, and it is awesome. Oh yeah, you know, different strokes for different folks. Oh, and also, Jake did end himself in an arcane mishap. See what happens? You're messing with powers beyond your control there. Jake eventually re-rolled a crazy elven wizard, which was great. Anyway, the fourth player was Craig, and Craig is the focus of this story. He rolled an upbeat, chi-wielding Eastern monk that dripped of shonen protagonist material. Well, at least he didn't roll a tiny Japanese girl specifically. What saga was that? Ross? Yeah, the Ballad of Ross. I don't know if it was all that weird outside of the, him insisting on playing a small Japanese girl, but yeah, that part does stick out in my mind, even these few years later. Anyway, I think Craig's catchphrase was screaming, "Springtime of youth!" from the top of his lungs and doing an obnoxious fist pump. Most of the time, Craig's character was fine, but along the road, Craig and his character started showing their true selves, much to the horror of the gaming group. I mean, springtime of youth, I guess that's a catchphrase. Sure. Already you can kind of tell Craig's a weird guy, though. The campaign started in a typical high fantasy fashion, the player characters being sold as slaves together in some remote shithole of the world. I think I even warned my players that an Elder Scrolls opening was coming, so they should prepare themselves for starting at absolute zero.
Hey, you're finally awake.
The 4 players were captured, along with 2 NPCs that would both become integral to the overarching plot. An old former priest and a young sorceress. Now, this was the first session of the campaign, and from what I know now, this was about the first red flag that came up. Said sorceress, named Ray, was from an eastern land described in the setting as not Japan during the feudal era with magic and katanas everywhere. As a result of her upbringing, again inspired by the time period that the eastern country emulated, she was very submissive, polite, and timid. Immediately after I described her, Craig had this strange look on his face, and he immediately had his character scoot over to try helping her, more or less ignoring the other fellow captives. Yeah, this is gonna get really weird, isn't it? You have to roleplay it out with me, GM! No, get out of here, go home!
Get the hell out of here and stay out, you pervert!
Anyway, the group managed to overthrow the crew of the slave ship and took it for themselves. The group went on loads of adventures across the seas in their stolen slaver ship, fighting big bad evil guys and chthonic horrors left and right. Things were going fine, and we had a lot of fun. Wouldn't it be hilarious if the post just ended right there? Like, yeah, that's it. It wasn't a horror story at all. He scooted next to an imaginary Japanese woman, and that was it. Okay, neat. With time, Craig's character's affection for Ray kept growing, and it eventually became mutual. Romance and all that was a natural part of the campaign by design, as it encouraged proper role-playing and character growth. I would say we handled it quite well, compared to all the other horror stories that I've read here. Ray and Craig's character became intimate, which made Craig exceptionally happy. That is some sort of commitment, OP. He's just leering at you. Hey, so would you like to go to bed, m'lady? And you gotta be like, yes, Craig, help me with my bodice.
I don't like where this is going.
I don't think I can do it. Nah, not in my games. I don't give a fuck about that part of roleplay, okay? Whatever. Anyway, in between games, Craig wrote all these kinds of novels about his character's affection for Ray and sent them to me. Yeah, this... don't do that. Unsuspecting of things to come, I graciously applauded his dedication to the game. Are we still role-playing? Is this for real right now? This is a mental illness working its way into his mind. That's not OP's fault. He just created an engaging scenario. Sometimes these things can be a little bit too engaging when someone, has screws loose up there. Anyway, at one point, Ray was separated from the group for an extended period of time. Craig was expectedly upset with this. He became increasingly quiet between sessions and did all sorts of odd things in character. On the top of my head, I remember him once yelling out of character at another player that he wanted to carry an unconscious nubile girl instead of that guy. Jake, which played said character, just went, "Sure, dude, whatever," and handed over the unconscious girl to Craig. It was as weird and awkward as it sounds. Thank God she's unconscious and also not real. But what, may I ask, will your other not real girlfriend feel about it, But if Ray was there, he wouldn't be doing this. Eventually, Ray did come back to the group and had undergone quite a radical transformation, for reasons that I won't go into here. Her personality, formerly submissive and timid, had become sarcastic, extroverted, and at times quite abrasive. Yeah, there you go, kick it into full ReddX mode. This did not sit very well with Craig, and he was noticeably upset by this evolvement. After this point, 2 parallel stories unfolded, one in character and another out of character. Okay, so my theory here is that OP didn't want to roleplay with Craig anymore, so he wants to make the demure Asian woman seem less inviting. Craig is, of course, upset by this seemingly out-of-nowhere change to his once imaginary waifu, and so begins the downward spiral. Am I close? Let's see. In character, Ray and Craig's characters just sort of grew apart. Craig's character ignored Ray, and their relationship just fizzled out by lack of mutual interest. Such things happen, that's life. Yeah, I guess, but do you keep adventuring together after that? Awkward! The more interesting story is how Craig handled this out of character. He became increasingly antagonistic toward Ray, yawned, rolled his eyes, made remarks whenever she said or did anything. I remember him saying, "Can't she just shut the fuck up?" out of character at one point.
Whoa, relax, dude. Take it easy, man. Cool your beans, bro.
She's not real. You realize that, right? You could throw her off a mountainside if you want. Then the group probably tries to PK you. But I don't know, roll up another character. Come on back. Hey, I'm a different guy now. Who's that dead Japanese lady? The group tried to ignore Craig's strange behavior the best we could. The strangeness became even more apparent since the problem with Ray's transformation was limited only to Craig. The other players found this new Ray amusing and funny and a little bit sad at the same time. In other words, her inclusion in the story was still appreciated and they thought she was a great character. But for Craig, his love turned to bitter hatred for his lost waifu. Yeah, these things do happen. I don't know. He really wanted to marry the DM's character sheet, I guess. After some time, he decided to switch character in an effort to cut away the no doubt strange concoctions of feelings that he was still having about Ray, the imaginary character. Still, even with the new character on the table, he couldn't even bear the sight of her. His hatred doubled when he found out that Ray had moved on from Craig's shonen hero character that had also physically left the group and had now become involved with Jake's crazy elven wizard. Now, how long did that transition take? Doesn't seem like there was even time for a rebound in there. Maybe Ray is meant for the streets.
He belongs to the street.
Out of character, Craig was incredibly angry and upset about this. We, as in Craig and myself, spent God knows how many hours talking about the issue, trying to find some way to solve it, or at least I tried with my non-existent degree in psychology. No, he really does need a psychologist of some sort. Get this man medicated ASAP. Not even a joke. It felt like I was giving actual relationship advice to Craig, which is incredibly bizarre and a bit distressing at the same time. Well, no shit. You're not a professional. This is not something that you can handle feasibly. You gotta start stonewalling the fuck out of it. We don't talk about that anymore. That character's dead. I know you're super jealous over your Japanese waifu. But again, she's for the streets.
She is thy for thy streets. So be not wary when she must return from whence she came.
Craig's new character didn't last very long. Craig decided to leave the group for personal reasons and not having any time to roleplay. After leaving the campaign, he told me that he felt personally betrayed, especially for me, quote-unquote, giving away Ray to Jake. Yeah, how could you do that? Now you owe me a new imaginary woman to fantasize over. Make it now! This is insane. At this point, I was pretty fed up with his obsessive rants, but I didn't want to antagonize him any more than necessary. I kind of just said, hey, I was sorry things turned out the way that they did, but that one should be careful to separate character from player. Let's just say that Craig didn't qualify for the national team of separating persona from person. To point out, there was no obstacle for Craig to continue pursuing Ray in her new and improved version. I had half expected him to get to know about the new her, but I think he felt like it was too much of a chore, as he had already won her and didn't want to be bothered doing it again. But I do digress because I can't actually say what was going on inside of his head. Well, I would like to digress here, if I may. This does seem sorta true to life, and people do change a lot throughout the time that you know them. Winning your significant other it's an ongoing process, okay? Just because somebody chose to be with you today doesn't mean that they're going to choose to be with you tomorrow. All this is proof positive that Craig doesn't really see Ray as a person, he saw her as a trophy. OP obviously wanted to evolve past that, and Craig wasn't willing to evolve with her, even though she's not a real person. What the fuck? You're making me dissect the whole thing. It's not even a real thing! Anyway, that was the long-winded story about my problematic player Craig leaving the campaign, which lasted for another 2 years before concluding in his absence. There are more stories about Craig being that guy, his ultimate meltdown that ended in him quitting the group and renouncing his friendship, his own bizarre campaigns, and many other weird tales. Tell me in the comments if you want to hear more about him. TLDR, player becomes smitten with an NPC and freaks out when said NPC undergoes radical personal changes, spirals into madness as player obsesses over NPC out of character and eventually leaves the campaign, feeling personally betrayed by the loss of his waifu. What do I have to say about all that? Sucks to suck. If you really wanted to hold on to your waifu, why wouldn't you chase it? I guess he just liked the introverted version of her, which, you know, that's fine. We've got some memories together, but now she's an extrovert. You're really not that into it, so let it go. Like, is it that hard to let it go? This imaginary relationship that you had in a tabletop game? I'm telling you, dude, I'm deeply concerned for Craig's mental health. This is not good. This is not normal. But we got to keep riding that train till it derails completely, so let's get into part number 2 right now. You totally are the main character. In Exercise in Lack of Self-Awareness 2. Hello, everyone! Due to popular demand, I've decided to write up another story in the In Exercise in Lack of Self-Awareness series, as if that's a thing. I mean, it is a thing. You just made it a thing. Neat. This time, it's about Craig being the ST, which is GM. What does it stand for? Comments is going to let me know. We'll fix it in the next one. Strap yourselves in, get cozy, and prepare yourselves. In case you haven't, I suggest reading the first part. Highly recommended reading. I already got you, OP. 2 steps ahead. So the campaign started sometime during my own Anima campaign. The group consisted of illustrious Craig, Jacob, Jake, and myself. When he pitched the idea, I had never even heard of the system. Exalted, 2nd edition by White Wolf. He made it sound like this over-the-top Greek/Chinese mythology madness cocktail of awesome and laser raptors. I enjoy a good laser raptor as much as the next man, but to be honest, the system sounds confused, if anything. What do you actually want to be? If the game doesn't know what it wants to be, then I don't know what I want to be, and I don't really want to play. You add Craig into that mix, and yeah, I double plus don't want to play. How could any decent person say no to that? I'm not a decent person, OP. Thing is, he was very stingy about player immersion and set up a significant rule. The players were not allowed to read the rule books. Fuck this. How am I supposed to know what the hell I'm doing?
What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to chase after them?
Only choice parts were open for reading, such as basic character creation and some snippets of the game systems. That's nice, we players thought, and proceeded to create our characters. We initially thought that this was some design choice to get us started on some high immersion campaign where meta knowledge would ruin everything. Let's just say that some meta knowledge would call out the campaign for the bullshit that it became. Yeah, the power of the DM screen. Or the ST screen, as the case may be. And I looked it up, it stands for storyteller. I'm just gonna keep saying DM though. Anyway, we rolled our characters. Strict orders were placed on us to not have any attribute or skill over 3, where 5 is the usual maximum, and we were allowed next to no supernatural powers. For those who know the setting and system, we started as unheroic, heroic mortals that had yet to be exalted. Jake rolled a savage huntress from the southeast creation, which is an area of incredibly dense forests, coupled with badlands and all that. Her tribe had been brutally wiped out by a dark overlord named Mask of Winters, a name that meant nothing to Jake as it was suggested by Craig. Jake's huntress name was Taya, and she was a competent archer, survivalist, and tracker, but had incredibly bad social skills. Jacob, while having a brain aneurysm, decided to roll an ancient old blind hag with an owl familiar that acted as her eyes. It's kind of lit, honestly. Why is Jacob out here rolling up all the best characters? I want to play with Jacob. He knows how to have some fun. We all thought that the character was incredibly bad, and Jacob later admitted to, quote, temporarily succumbing to insanity while creating her. He later changed the character, but we will get to that part. Dude, Jacob, stand apart, be your own man. Don't follow these fucking min-maxers. You can't roll this because it has a weakness to that. Who cares? My character's terrified of water. Now we can't do the pirate ship boat thing. Wait, that was in the last campaign. Whatever. It just adds a little spice. You know what I'm saying? That's important. Like the personality changing Japanese waifu. That's spicy. Let's spice it up. All right, continuing on. OP's own character became the scum of the earth Zael. Zeal. Who cares? He was a complete fiend and probably the worst person to invite to a house party. Oh, it's party demon, whoa! His backstory was that he belonged to the middle nobility and that his family secretly worshipped some demonic entity. As nobility of just about every type is wont to do. The richer you are, the stranger your proclivities get. Anyway, being the youngest child, OP's character had trouble proving his worth to his extensive collection of older brothers and sisters, whom were all objectively better than him. What he lacked in sense, he made up with sheer lunacy, as he made some fell pact with the murder demon in the family basement and killed all his closest family members and the staff at their estate. What a champ!
Hey champ, that's really interesting. Next time, keep it to yourself.
I don't understand why anybody would want to play a character like that. Yes, he's a gibbering lunatic. A murder hobo personified. Well, super. Welcome to the team, buddy. What the fuck?
What is wrong with you people?
OP says, I had noticed a background, which is a category of bonuses at character creation called familiar. I had no idea where to spend my background points, so I spent the maximum possible 5 dots in it. See, you've already broken the rules. The rules probably are asinine, but we haven't even started yet, and you're already breaking the rules. And then you're gonna be like, he's the bad guy, because he got upset about it. No, motherfucker, you agreed to all this. Whatever. Said familiar was a servant to the murder demon, a sleek panther that could turn into an equally dangerous and badass woman. ZL was a real edgelord, if I'm allowed to use the local nomenclature, but the idea was that he would become a decent person and overcome his psychological problems. Craig was informed of my plan and gave me the thumbs up. Panther that turns into a lady, huh?
I don't know, man. You've been seeming sus lately.
I'll tell you, birds of a feather, OP. You missed becoming Craig by like a ball hair, just so you know. Just so you know. The campaign started with our characters walking up in a secluded camp in the middle of nowhere. There were cannibals everywhere, and we 3 seemed to be the only recent catches. We managed to escape our bonds and started to formulate a plan to escape. Jake and OP's characters agreed that killing the ever-living shit-Jesus out of these cannibals was the prudent thing to do. Jake was dishonored by her tribe's standards and needed to redeem herself. OP just wanted to murderfuck everyone forever. Yeah, like I said, real deep and interesting character there. Anyway, battle ensued. It quickly became clear that Craig had absolutely no idea how to run this combat system. He spent the better part of an hour doing research straight out of the rulebook. First time playing, so it was quite understandable, but as a tip to all you new GMs, don't plan a combat encounter unless you have at least a vague idea about the rules. We players had no clue, as our access to the rulebooks was limited by law. Yeah, but we could still drop 5 points and then get our 60 Panther ladies. Don't talk about OP, you know what I'm talking about. But I do imagine this is massively frustrating. Craig, I understand being a newbie, but like, read up the night before. Run some test games with yourself, you know? Being competent really isn't that hard if you commit yourself to it. Anyway, after an incredibly awkward combat, we ran off into the desert. I will not go into much detail about what happened, as much of it is lost to the mists of memory. I will, however, go through some more amusing and alarming details of the campaign in a looser narrative, and I hope that's fine with you guys. Yeah, sure, I'm strapped in for the ride. A mere few sessions in, we met with a runaway princess from some crumbling kingdom. It quickly became clear that she was the MacGuffin of the campaign, as Craig described her in incredible detail. Oh, God, it's just another Ray, isn't it? She was a stoic but easily flustered armored princess that was clearly superior to all the player characters in every way. Her combat ability was way higher than ours. As you remember, we were allowed a maximum of 3 in our attributes and skills instead of the usual 5. Kara, as her name was, sort of just ordered us to help her on her incredibly vague quest. We had no idea what was going on, so some form of direction was appreciated. So we went to follow around the MacGuffin, like a bunch of trail hands. Not the heroic heroes of Dawn that we were promised to be. No, you gotta earn that part. The game has to suck for the first few sessions. Nah, it's called a power fantasy for a reason. OP continues, speaking of heroes of the Dawn, one of the main ideas of the early parts of the campaign was that we should all exalt. Now, normally mortals become exalts in specific circumstances. For instance, a scholar might become a Twilight caste when she realized some fundamental truth about the world. A soldier might become a Dawn caste when facing impossible odds on the battlefield, and so forth. It's basically an incredible power boost that permanently makes the character larger than life and awesome in every conceivable way. Craig had a wholly different interpretation of the act of exaltation. He did it by bits and crumbs. Yeah, just keep trailing him along. Just get through the sucky part, guys. I swear the game's gonna get good soon. I don't have time for this, man. I'd rather be basically any place else at this point. All of our characters... Oh, by the way, Jacob changed character to a well-spoken sorcerer's apprentice after his crazy old lady sort of just wandered off into the desert. Yeah, the owl got caught in a sandstorm. Sad, sad. Nobody even helps her. They're just like, where'd you go? Dude, that sucks. Good luck out in the desert, old lady. The new guy's name was Geist, and he knew terrestrial sorcery at character creation while being mortal. Yeah, that was totally fair. Anyway, back to the exaltations. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Why is it unfair? You got, like, the Sex Panther, didn't you? It's fine.
It's called Sex Panther by Odeon. It's illegal in 9 countries.
Anyway, back to the exaltations. One by one, we started noticing subtle differences in ourselves. Doing things slightly better, or doing spontaneous, miraculous feats. We, at least that I know of, had these visions of old wise masters standing on the water and all that. Instead of getting all that kaboom boom at once, as dictated by the rules that were, we were drip-fed one agonizing charm at a time. For those who don't know what a charm is, it's essentially a magic power that allows you to do increasingly crazy things, from jumping several dozen feet straight into the air to cutting down swaths of enemies with the speed of sunlight. No, we'll get to all those things soon, but the game has to suck first, so you appreciate it later. OP says Craig did the drip feeding, mostly between sessions. We would all have these mini sessions where we were rewarded by a charm, of his choosing, of course. We never really got any agency when it came to character progression. Trust me, guys, I'm gonna build you the best character for real. This is so dumb. But I guess Craig's your friend at this point. You sort of sit through the bullshit. I do get it. At least back in the day. Not these days. I truly do not have the time. OP's character mainly got athletics charms that allowed him to become exceptionally mobile, but he got no means of proper defense or attack. I think he never once during the campaign was at full health due to being a melee fighter without the ability to defend himself. Instead, he was just jumping around like a total asshole. That's the character you rolled. Embrace it. Jake got next to nothing, while Jacob, eerily similar names, but I prefer that over the character names, got sorcery as charms. Yeah, that's totally how it works. It just became even better when a new player, Mike, joined us. He had played Exalted before, and he got to roll a full solar. Gasp! Mike was a bit confused by the way things were handled by Craig and told him, dude, that's totally not how exaltations work. Craig just told him to shut the fuck up and let him run his game the way he wanted. I'm convinced that homebrewing and modification of standard settings and systems is totally fine, as long as you inform your players. Yes, indeed. There's something awfully sus anyways about somebody being like, you can't see the rulebook. Craig, however, had created the perfect solution and prohibited us from knowing the truth, and thus we were unable to realize his bullshit. The big problem with the method of drip feeding was that Craig was playing favorites. Jake, whom Craig had some sort of issue with, got next to nothing. Because he stole Ray. You remember that? She might be an old flame, but it'll never die. Jacob, on the other hand, was super busy most evenings, so he had no time to do these mini sessions for those sweet, sweet charms. Myself, on the other hand, was basically courted with invites from Craig. OP had all these sorts of adventures by himself and got to learn various plot-related information. Pro tip, don't do that. Player information should be shared, at least if it is related to the main plot. As such, OP got his character significantly more useful and powerful than his peers. Yeah, cool. Good time investment. Jacob, Jake, and I laughed heartily after the campaign came to its abrupt end. The Jake had like one charm that allowed her to shoot arrows at large distances. The problem was that she couldn't shoot for shit to begin with, as all the enemies were scaled to match Jacob's sorcery. MacGuffin's epic swordsmanship and OP's idiot jumping. Speaking of MacGuffin, she was some sort of homebrew prototype solar that had her exaltation tattooed into her body. Pretty sure that's just from another anime that Craig had watched. You guys tell me if you know which one. She was leagues above us when it came to being useful, and she solved entire situations by herself. Oh, good. In that case, I don't need to be here. Have fun playing with yourself some more, Craig. And of course, MacGuffin was never wrong. We had, as you might remember, no idea what was going on in creation, and everything that MacGuffin said turned out to be true and correct. So, nice going, Greg. Oh, see, maybe he did do some homework. The social contract was breached because he didn't inform everybody of his homebrew idea, but I don't know, OP put 5 points into a Sex Panther, so I guess everybody's even. Or maybe not even quite even, because OP played that weird murder hobo guy. Anyway, I had almost forgotten about OP's murder demon familiar. The badass panther was named Raga, and she turned out to be the most underpriced familiar ever made. If it wasn't enough with the overpowered MacGuffin, Raga was a total combat powerhouse and became increasingly important character to the plot. Something something, Lost Demon Queen, something. Yeah, this is the edgelordiest of edgelords characters. But OP's the one playing it. Something's all backwards here. She also made numerous advances on OP, to no one's surprise. MacGuffin did too. They obviously could not resist his sociopathic charm. That's right, women like bad boys. Got all these demon bitches on my dick.
Come here, big boy. Let me see what you're working with.
Hey, stop!
Raga even ended a boss battle by herself at one point. We were after this serial killer that made portraits out of the blood of his victims. Edgy. This is the edgiest campaign that ever edged. We need to run it inside the goon cave. He was said to be this total badass demon-possessed mastermind. Guess what happened? Round 1, Raga won initiative. Every player said, but she's not even here. And Craig said, just wait. And then Raga materialized behind the badass painter and ripped him into strips of flesh and a tasty blood mist in one attack. Really climactic. Especially bad considering Mike, whom played the party's face, wanted to talk with the painter about what had made him so powerful. Perhaps he had some fell master that was the real threat. No, that would not do, Craig thought. Yeah, why bother questioning him? You just kill him and go on to the next guy. That's what murder hobos do. Over time, a major problem started to become evident. OP's character had slowly become the main character of the campaign. Craig gave him exclusive, essential information, which I thought was completely nuts. He also placed these awkwardly sensualized women at his feet. Craig even threw an, I swear to God, underage girl at OP's character and had me roll temperance, which governs self-control, in order to not have his way with her. This is getting really weird. No, thank you. I'd refuse to roll for it. Did you actually roll for it, OP? I mean, I know your character's a degenerate, but not like this. Not like this. Thankfully, I did pass that check. He actually rolled for it. Holy God. Great, I thought. He was making a harem that no one asked for. That's just dandy. It went as far as Craig saying to me in private that my character was more important than the other player characters. Yeah, because you guys spend all this time together, go on little adventures together, and then he wants to try and romance you with his NPCs. The NPCs are just a shield. Peel back a couple layers and see that it's really Craig lurking back there. He wants you, OP. He wants you bad.
Would you do me? Do me so hard.
The ball's in your court. OP says I was quite distressed by this and asked him to distribute the spotlight more fairly, but my pleas fell upon deaf ears. Didn't you like it, OP? Didn't you like it even a little bit? He made you feel like a big special boy? It's getting so weird, okay. The campaign itself was incredibly unfocused, completely lacking an overarching plot in favor of Craig's whim of the week. Weird things just happen one by one, some of them amusing, others less so. For example, we visited Jacob's master, who was a deranged magician that had sent him into the world in search of panties. Cool.
I kind of got my own game going on over here.
OP had to roll temperance to not hug that underage girl to death, which failed, turning her into a side reel Exalted for some inexplicable reason. OP's character was forced into copulating with a water nymph, which almost instantly produced a fully aged son that OP could not handle. It was a right mess, without any direction to speak of. Well, the direction is just whimsy. Welcome to Craig's game, the game of whimsy. Eventually, Jake started to lose interest because of this unfair treatment. He made minimum effort during sessions, and yeah, I don't blame him. His actions were mostly ignored, and he was never really encouraged or rewarded for doing things. Jacob, being a sweet angel of kindness, tried to have fun and ignore the obvious favoritism. Oh, Jake, come on. He's a busy man. This is the time that he slotted in for himself, and Craig is fucking ruining it. Maybe it's time to stop being a sweet angel of kindness. Maybe it's time to be a demon of retribution. Just my thought. OP says, I mostly felt incredibly guilty for having become the de facto main character of the story, but I tried to shift the focus as best I could. Nope, that wouldn't do, said Craig, and shifted it right back. He's sort of gay for you for real, you know? The campaign ended in the most undignified way possible. It was put on permanent ice after Craig found a new tabletop RPG system to obsess over. Wow, great. What a waste of time. His interest in Exalted had passed, and he said he had quote-unquote lost inspiration. After the campaign was over, I was told that his plan for the end game, yes, he used that term, was that Raga would return in her demon queen form with the Sword of Creation, which is a powerful global defensive system, not a physical sword, and she would kill all of the gods with it. He said that it was then up to OP, not the party, to quote-unquote redeem her, or some bullshit like that. Yikes. Sounds to me like Craig is sort of into your little Sex Panther lady too, huh? He's like, yeah, can I see your character sheet? I might make a Xerox. Xerox comes out and he rubs it on his face, just like, oh yeah, warm copies. Now, the moral of this story is, don't pick favorites among your players. Don't take away the agency of character progression from the players. Don't follow your whims when it comes to campaign design. Don't keep players in the dark when it comes to settings and systems. And for the love of God, don't force players to have to roll something to avoid banging underage people. Not just girls, people. And Craig is wrong for having to make you roll it, but you're the one that ended up rolling it. I gotta put some responsibility in your lap too, OP. Where's your fucking gumption? You could have refused. What happens if you failed the check or something? Jesus. This game's going to some really dark places. TLDR, storyteller / GM, obfuscates facts, has a field day on everything that's holy with the setting and system, removes player agency, and plays favorites, realizes that people don't like that sort of thing, and abruptly cancels the whole campaign. That's merciful when you describe it that way. There are 2 more stories about Craig that come to mind. One of them is about a promising Pathfinder / D&D 4th edition campaign being mismanaged into oblivion, while another is about Craig's ultimate meltdown. Tell me in the comments if you're interested in reading them. Edit part 3 here. Now, I will say, Craig, he's absolutely a creep. But OP, I don't know. You do seem to have some sort of hand in this. I'll be interested to see how parts 3 and 4 go. I'm not going to pull punches on anybody's behavior, including OP's. I'm sure my friends in the Jerry Army wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you so much for watching, by the way. Craig's idealized waifu, a sickly, powerless girl without legs that lived in a hospital. What the f***?
Well, different strokes for different folks.
Don't ruin my seed! In Exercise and Lack of Self-Awareness, part number 3. This is, of course, the 3rd story in the An Exercise and the Lack of Self-Awareness series. It takes place in parallel with the Anima campaign described in part 1 and after the Exalted campaign in part 2. I suggest reading them before diving into this rather lengthy story. That's fine. I read it at some point. It's in my brain somewhere. The only part I truly remember about the Craig saga is coming out and calling the OP sus a few times, and some of the comments being like, yeah, nobody ever pointed that out before. I'm like, good. That's the ReddX experience. If I think they're full of shit, I'll let you know. But some people think I'm full of shit, so what does it really mean anyways?
Well, he's fairly intelligent. He's full of shit!
Anyway, part 1, part 2, great, we did it. Go watch it if you want. After the anticlimactic ending of Craig's Exalted campaign, he flung back and forth about which tabletop RPG system to run next. A lot of systems were up for discussion, and Craig's whims were difficult to follow. He knew what setting he wanted because it was one of his own making. The problem was finding a system that was just right. You should try Blood and Thunder for a pirate theme. Made by a good friend of the channel, Ramtide. You can get it right now for name your own price over on ramtide.itch.io. Try it out. There's also Weirdos and Waifus for like a beardy one-shot. There's You Wake Up Naked in a Field with a Rock, which is exactly what it sounds like. It was mentioned in the Hippie Saga briefly. Truly, that is like a blank canvas. It can be whatever you want. The truth is, Craig doesn't actually want to pick a system. He likes to feel like he's in charge for a little bit. I think that's what this really boils down to, doesn't it? He's got a weird feeling of secret power, and he doesn't want to let it go. Anyway, OP says, at one point, Craig even tried to jailbreak and overhaul the Anima Beyond Fantasy system to meet his ends. I strongly recommended otherwise, as overhauling a system usually ends in a complete mess. In the end, we settled for Pathfinder, as we all were interested in trying it and found it dynamic enough to meet Craig's criteria. Yeah, Craig's vague criteria. Nobody ever bothered to ask what it was, if we could help him look. Are we here to game or are we going shopping? Let's fucking get it together. Anyway, roll call. The exact same people joined this campaign as the previous. Craig took the position of glorious GM, while Jake, and I joined as players. A bit further into the story, Mike once again joined. As for the characters... Oh wait, I think it's easier to describe the setting before getting to the characters, and trust me, it'll all make sense. It's your show, man, go ahead. The premise of the setting was great, not gonna lie. It was an underground setting, where the surface had been blasted into a hellish wasteland by some demonic gods. The survivors evacuated to a gigantic underground metropolis called Hymia Eerie. Hamia? I'm not even going to pretend to know how to pronounce that right. Craig doesn't even know how to properly pronounce it right, I'm sure. In the deep dark, people started mining into the vast caverns in search of resources. They found certain crystals of condensed light, which acted as a power source, creating a steampunkish, low fantasy setting. Actually, sort of piques my curiosity. I did say I like low fantasy. Can't go back on that now. It's the truth. A certain ethnicity of humans, whom called themselves the Lydian, had built Hamia Eerie, and they quickly constructed an autocratic and fascistic hierarchy, placing themselves at the very top, and the lesser people at the rock bottom. Ooh, the lessers, yes, the paws, as we call them. Amongst these people at the bottom were the cursed rock elves, or gray elves, that acted as slaves and menial labor. Craig told us that our group would be explorers, diplomats, and adventurers from Hymia Eerie, and when Craig pitched the idea, we all thought, oh yeah, sounds great. Perhaps he's learned from his mistakes and has become a better game master. Sadly, our hopes and dreams would quickly be crushed beneath Craig's boot heel. It's kind of like fool me once, shame on you, and fool me twice, shame on me. Craig fooled you, 3 times, so shame on you twice, I guess. Is that how the math works out?
Come on, do math.
Anyway, I rolled a Ladian magus named Leon. He was a very young and naive half-Lydian that attended to what can only be described as steampunk magic school. Leon's dad was a renowned alchemist and explorer that had gone missing for the better part of his life. The mother was unknown, but implied to be a human of lesser pedigree. What a wizard, dude. Couldn't even pull a Stacy. All he gets are these Beckys. I told Craig that I wanted Leon's origin obfuscated. For example, I had left hints that Leon might be a simulacrum, a crafted human made by his father, plot fodder for the GM, I guess. Anyway, Leon was a scholar and kind-hearted person, as a result of me wanting to wash away the moist suit of Ziel from the Exalted campaign. Honestly, props there. I really hated your stupid edgelord character. Can I just be frank with you? He was bullied at school for not being a true-born Lydian, but he tried his best to fit in. I mean, he's a fucking robot, isn't he? He could punch through a wall if he wants. Or is like a crafted human as weak as like a regular human? Why would you craft it all shitty like that? You could make it out of metal and steel with power that's real. Whatever. Halfway interesting character, much better than the previous campaign, so I thank you. The first session came, and Leon was attending a school assembly due to state leaders coming to visit. Craig described these extravagantly clad people walking down rows and rows of saluting students. It quickly became clear that the state leaders were evil as fuck. They all had menacing auras, especially a scary-looking bodyguard, as the GM showed Raiden from MG Revengeance. I need to play that. The symbol was, I kid you not, a photoshopped combination of the little mustache man Imperial Eagle holding the Star Wars Empire symbol instead of the tiny mustache man symbol. Okay, I thought. Perhaps we are going to overthrow these obvious baddies. None of the other player characters were in sight, so I just went along. The state arranged a huge fighting tournament for their amusement and to instill discipline in the student body. Leon, being a capable fencer, joined and beat the snot out of one of his bullies. The first day of the visit came to an end, and Leon retreated back to his dorm room. Yep, can't fight against evil today. Gotta level up a little bit first. When prepared for bed, Leon felt a huge rumble from underneath. He went out of his dorm room and ran into one of the fellow students. Together, they started walking toward the assembly hall / safety bunker. Their escape was cut short when the ground gave way beneath them, causing them to tumble several floors down. Oh, shit! When they came to, they found themselves in one of the older parts of the academy, where students were not allowed. This is where they experiment with necromantic spells, isn't it? Oh! We gotta kill some zombies, but you don't have to feel bad about it because they're already dead. Leon and the other student wandered around in hope of finding an exit when they heard footsteps. In came a group of stone elves. As a reminder, they were the oppressed slave race of the Ledian, headed by none other than Jacob's character. Now, I must admit that Jacob really outdid himself when it came to his character. His name was Basal, and he was an utterly terrifying dude belonging to a mysterious faction called Deep Walkers, or something like that. Yeah, super mysterious. How deep can you walk, bro? Not as deep as the Deep Walkers, bro. This faction was an independent group of explorers, navigators, and guides that adhered to a strict code of conduct and took upon themselves the sacred task of helping explorers enter the deep horrors below Haimea Eerie. Basically, Basal was a witch, and boy, did he play one well. He always wore a haunting, obsolete gas mask and a grand coat. His familiar was a nasty shadow demon that only created silhouettes against whatever backdrop it passed by. I mentioned Basal was scary, and this was due to Jacob's portrayal of him. He had this utter confidence and stoicism, combined with the streaks of face-eating madness. Whatever Craig would throw at us in the way of horror, compaled in comparison to Jacob's Basal. Glorious. Yeah, a little Plague Doctor vibes, I'm kinda into that. Jacob is just a hell of a player, dude. I think every character that he's come up with through these stories I find interesting. Anyway, back to Leon. Understandably, the detachment of Grey Elves were not very pleased to see a pale-faced young Ledian crossing their path. The only reason he wasn't killed was that Basal told the group that he had not agreed to any deaths. Instead, Leon and his classmate became captured by the Grey Elves. In short order, the group came into a lab where they found a prisoner that they freed. Enter Jake's character, Embla. She was a particularly large Grey Elf that had been subjected to experimental treatment by her captors. My god, the Grey Elves are experimenting on one of their own. Much like the humans known as scientists.
Get your dork ass down to the test chamber, or else I will shove the sample up your ass.
We'll make way for Big Pharma, everybody. Over Embla's entire body, there were silvery markings that she sort of hijacked to create supernatural feats. Yeah, why not? I guess if the other guy gets a shadow demon. This is not as low fantasy as I was made to believe. Mechanically, Embla was a monk. Alright then, the group's destination was freeing Craig's MacGuffin for the campaign. You guessed it, she was a woman, described in great detail. Her name was Chechel, and she... what kind of name is that? And she possessed an extremely rare affinity for the light crystals used to power all magic and science. Hell yeah, dude, you can use it as a flashlight battery. You can use it to shoot magic missile.
Magic missile! Magic missile! Magic missile! I'm out of mana. I need a pop.
Just don't forget to put the crystals in. Easy. So Leon was quite pleased to see another Ledian, but Chechel quickly made it clear that she cared little for imperialist scum. Yay! After rescuing Chechel, the group started to escape the academy via the underways. One crashed escape ship later, and the group were on their merry way toward rejoining with the tunnel-lurking rebels. Mike joined later on as a Grey Elf barbarian named Grey. He had a hair trigger and an Oedipus complex. Not much else to say, really. I mean, yeah, I guess not. Oedipus complex speaks volumes all on its own, trust me. I don't know how much more I want to know about Mike. Anyway, OP continues and says, as you probably realize, my character was the odd man out. The group somehow took favor upon his fellow student, but his own treatment was abysmal. I will relate to you some of the more memorable sections of the campaign in somewhat chronological order. When exploring the deep depths of the caverns below, OP's character totally stressed out and punched Jacob's character into unconsciousness. Is there a mechanic for that? What, are we fucking playing Darkest Dungeon? I don't know, dude. My dude just had to punch your dude. You're an asshole. I don't want to play with you anymore. He left him lying in the darkness and went back to camp. The others said he would be fine, as his familiar would surely take care of him. No, that did not happen. Instead, Craig thought this otherwise innocuous character-building moment should spiral out of control and make everyone uncomfortable. You see, one part of the code that Basal followed was that it was absolutely forbidden to leave anyone behind in the tunnels. Breaking that code, even if you had no idea about it, would result in what they call exaction, which is essentially an impromptu court of law. Jacob had no idea about this, and the next session was dedicated to forcing PvP between OP and Jacob. I mean, I would want to PvP him anyways. Imagine if somebody did that to you in real life, left you for dead. Like, I don't care how good your character is. There must be reprisals. It was not an honorable duel or something like that either, but a drawn-out, torturous experience where Basal would cast all manner of nasty spells on Leon until he finally gave up. Jake's character could do nothing to interfere with the horrifying ordeal and said next to nothing for the entire session. Yeah, you guys want to come to my house and just describe torturing each other for 3 hours? No, I don't think I like that. Jacob kept trying to have Basal let Leon get off easy, as he was not much more than a child, but Craig would have none of that. At times, Craig even said, your character does this because otherwise his peers would kill him for breaking the rules. Great, everyone thought, and kept up the travesty that no one asked for. Finally, it ended with Leon humiliating himself before Basal, basically groveling in his own blood and dirt to ask for forgiveness. Well, yeah, I forgive you instantly. You should have said that before we did all this shit. It's really awkward. I'm all for reprisals, as I said, but making the whole session about it, Jesus. What a slog. I want to go home. Anyway, later on, the party entered some bizarre pocket dimension where a mad sorcerer king reigned. We all thought it a bit strange, as it looked more akin to the standard fare medieval Europe Dungeons & Dragons playground, rather than the steampunkish techno-magic exploration simulator. Well, we thought, and went on with it. You're being railroaded right now. I hope you realize that. It's much easier to stop being railroaded if you punch the brakes nice and early. Then we only gotta rewind the past 10 minutes instead of the past 10 hours, you know? GM might be steering the ship, but I'm gonna dictate which way the wind blows, you know? I got some say here. Anyway, OP says, I can't remember why we even entered that horrid place. Maybe it was just another obstacle in the journey toward the other rebels. Anyway, the Pocket World was a really dark and gothic landmass of villages and a larger central city. Most of the populace were nothing more than mine slaves, while the undead walked the land without opposition. We quickly ran into one of the most obnoxious characters that Craig ever designed, Figaro, the hero! Figaro! I like him already. He was a second-rate Batman, combined with a happy-go-lucky attitude that made everyone grind their teeth in cringe. Honestly, I'm just going to consider myself lucky that he's not playing another woman that tries to seduce OP this time around. There's something weird going on here. I don't know if either of you guys realize it, but I'm picking up the pieces. Figaro's closer to how Craig sees himself in real life, and he just wants to show that part of himself to you, OP. And now that he's opened up his heart, won't you open yours back? Look at us, getting all twisted up in this crazy thing called love. Now kiss me on my hot mouth.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
You don't know what cringe is, OP. Dealing with a second-rate Batman, that's baby stuff. Watch me ship you guys together. Alright, continuing on. Worst part of it all was that Figaro was more or less forced upon us as the guy looks trustworthy and holds the string to all the plot hooks. Oh, fuck me, we all thought, and went with the idiot vigilante. Figaro was one of the few remaining free folk, and had taken it upon himself to rid the pocket world of the tyrannical sorcerer king, one undead lieutenant at a time. Yeah, super cool. How long is this part of the campaign gonna last? I hope all the lieutenants live next door to each other and we can just throw a Molotov cocktail, you know? Problem solved. Let's get the hell out of here to the actually interesting part. OP says, as you can imagine, we were roped into this ploy at instant speed. I mean, roped into makes it sound like you didn't want to go along with it, which I probably wouldn't. Like I said, it sounds paper thin. Oh, we killed a lieutenant, now we gotta go kill another one, and then another one. Maybe we get to fight the bad guy now. No, he's got more lieutenants. We could do this forever. Tell me how many, and I'll go burn their house down. We were sent out to ambush a supply caravan carrying slaves from the central city to some hellish mine or something. Being the clever players that we were, we sneaked up towards the caravan while it was still loaded with the poor souls, hoping to get the jump on the lieutenant. Embla, Jake's character, went out and crept up toward a wooden wall to peek out from. When peeking at the caravan, she was met with a guard looking her right back in the face. Then Craig lifted up his 5 fingers and started counting down. 5, 4, 3, Jake just said. Easy, man, just let me get a read on what happens around. Are there any other guards or cover? 2, 1, too bad. Yeah, the game is moving in real time because I want this to happen. Then Craig rolled attack for the guard and said that Embla was flat-footed, which is a combat state in Pathfinder that you get from having lower initiative and other things giving you penalties to your defenses. Of course, the guard critted and Embla went down like a wet napkin. The rest rushed in and spent nearly everything they had on the battle, barely scraping by, which we all thought was pretty bullshit. Yeah, I don't know. Most of my tabletop experiences are with Ramtide, and he runs it really hard, so what I like. It's also what I like in my video games. Kick my ass a little bit. Make me wary of some things. But yeah, the countdown thing didn't even give him a chance to, like, slip into the shadows, roll for whatever you have, sneak. That part's BS, but I do like the combat. Anyway, he says, yeah, I should mention that Craig ran his combat encounters really brutal. Most of them required every single resource at our disposal, leaving our characters barely breathing by the end of it. It didn't help that he was extremely restrictive with loot and equipment. We voiced this concern to Craig numerous times, and he showed his vast gratitude by bestowing Embla with some chainmail armor. Problem was, Embla was a monk and gained nothing from wearing the armor. He's trolling, what the fuck? Cool, thanks so much. Maybe next time I won't get crit in the face. I should also mention that the problem of character agency made a grand return in this campaign. Yeah, I could already tell. If you've read about his Exalted campaign, you know that Craig liked to change our characters around to create plot. Now, Leon was a vanilla magus, and I wanted him that way. Craig thought it wasn't cool enough, so he made him a Black Blade Magus, which is a variation on the base class with some modifications to wield the titular Black Blade. See, Craig's trying to make OP the central point of the story again, because they spend the most time together. Eventually, Figaro is going to ask out OP's character in game, and then Craig's going to be like, I have a question to ask you out of character. How's that gonna go? Because that is where all this is headed. Anyway, it didn't help that the Black Blade was a sadistic death demon that wanted to drive Leon into bad things. This is what I get for trying to play a nice character. I still wonder why I accepted such a blatant disregard for my own character agency. Because you got no balls, no backbone, it's fine. Maybe they've grown in sense. I guess it's not until you get older that you realize that you don't have that many years left on the planet anyway, and you don't want to spend it doing bullshit that isn't fun. Like at my current age, I'd speak up instantly. At 22, I don't know. I'd be like, yeah, let's see where it goes. Yeah, it's lame now, but maybe it gets better later. 3 campaigns later, we're still telling ourselves the same thing. Yeah, next time it'll be better. Oh, it's gonna be good next time. Craig said it would. He hasn't lied before, has he? Oh, he has? Huh. Well then, guess I'm dumb. But back to Figaro the hero. I had become quite fed up with Craig's treatment of my character. The constant bullying, lack of agency, broken promises, and questionable ethics on encounter design had really added up. I asked to change my character, which was accepted. Leon was, on Craig's behest, killed off by a magic MacGuffin box that we picked up earlier. Enter my new character, Rayra Weaver. Rayra? Do I have that right? I'm gonna call her Reba. Reba was unlike Leon, a native of the deep dark below and lived in said pocket dimension. Her backstory was that she suddenly woke up, fully grown, in one of the old temples near one of the free folk villages. She faintly remembered living amongst the stars and falling toward the depths. In essence, she was a quasi-angelic being sent to the world for unknown reasons. Yeah, we don't know the reason in the plot. The real reason is OP wanted to roll a new character. Her class was the notoriously powerful Synthesis Summoner, which I suggest you read up on if you're interested in broken builds. I can't claim that I fully optimized her, but I certainly made her considerably more powerful than the wimpy Leon. I mean, it is a power fantasy. I guess that's one way you could go. Now I'm an angel that shoots ray guns from her hands. Like, I don't know. I think a flawed character sort of more interesting, but if we're just going min-max, hey, you did it. Make sure you brag about it on Reddit.
What up, Reddit?
Oh, sorry. That's mean. I just gotta say it out loud, though, that I think you and I are pretty fundamentally different people, OP. Good way, bad way, I don't know, but different. Anyway, I blame the constant arms race between Craig and the players, so I had no moral trouble with creating Reba. Her synthesis form was, if you're interested, a sort of diva angel demon straight out of Hindu/Chinese folklore, complete with dozens of invisible arms and hovering a few inches above the air. My God, she can go to space. There's a lot of air on planet Earth. I guess she's an angel demon. Again, it's sort of cringe. I preferred Leon, if I'm honest. So Reba was rather quickly introduced to the remaining party, as she was very inclined to have the tyrant sorcerer king gone from the world. Without much hassle, the new party was formed, and they went to the Big Bad Evil Guy Citadel 1.0. The way up was brutal as fuck, as Craig usually liked it. Close to the top was a coliseum-like arena where we were forced to fight some gigantic sandworm. Like from Beetlejuice or from Dune?
Whoa. Sandworms. You hate them, right? I hate them myself!
It really did a number on us and mortally wounded Figaro the hero. The crowd of undead didn't much care for us actually surviving the entertainment and started to flood the Colosseum grounds. This sense of urgency to escape was rather confusing, as Craig described Figaro heroically delivering his final words to his wife, who was with us. Oh, we didn't mention that. As none of us really cared for Figaro, we just said that we started to look for the way out. Then out of nowhere, Craig screamed, "Don't ruin my scene!" at us. Oh, it really is about you. See? Figaro is the stand-in. We were all dumbfounded by this explosion and just sat there quiet. Then Craig proceeded to finish his heart-wrenching dialogue while our characters obediently stood and watched. Yeah, while being flooded by the undead. Afterwards, Craig said, "Don't interrupt me when I'm talking again!" And it sounded like a threat. See, what Craig really wants to do is play with himself, so just do that, Craig. You can write all the scenes you want, have your little monologue, soliloquy, whatever you like. You don't have to involve the rest of us. As a matter of fact, please don't involve the rest of us. After that sobering experience, we finally reached the big bad evil guy. He was sitting on his throne and gloated a bit. Something about power over death, you know, the usual stuff. In unison, we attacked him, rushing toward his throne. Then Craig said, "Roll a fortitude save." Some of us rolled really high, but we all failed regardless. We were essentially pinned down by some magical vortex. When we tried to ask for a reroll on the save, Craig proudly said, "There's no way you can escape. This is a level 9 spell, and you have to nat 20 to get out." Some of us tried, but rolling a 20 on demand is really not a trainable skill. I mean, arguable, but I guess for the most part, you are sort of right. Then Craig turned his face toward me and said something along the lines of, "You feel a power growing inside of you." Oh my god, Craig impregnated your character. Here we go, we're getting really weird again.
Oh no. Not again.
And Reba managed to escape her bonds without any roll to speak of. Then the big bad evil guy, being as generic as humanly possible, staggered backwards and said, "Impossible!" Craig then described how Reba ran toward him with her sword raised. He looked childishly delighted as he put on some epic music and asked, "Now, how does Reba finish him?" I looked around the table. My fellow players had a mix of disgust and confusion on their faces. Understandable, as the climactic confrontation with the big bad evil guy had been reduced to a cutscene-esque power trip. It's really disappointing. Craig, on the other hand, looked like he just witnessed the most awesome thing ever made. I felt rather uncomfortable and couldn't really share his enthusiasm, so I just went with a lot of screaming and stabbing with pointing things. Now the big bad evil guy's dead! Yay! After that anti-climax, we proceeded on our pointless quest toward the rebel base. It actually felt like we were getting further away from it by this session instead of closer. Mike switched out the barbarian Gray for a real edgelord lady and runaway inquisitor named Michael. Yeah, all the douchebags named Mike. Like I said, I think I said in the last episode. The new addition was constantly grumpy and really didn't add that much to the group dynamics. Yep, he's just along for the murder hobo, and every group has one. Now we get to Craig's grand design, a massive pyramid built by the obligatory proto-race. I have no idea how we came across it. It just sort of showed up, and of course we had to explore it. Just before entering this massive structure, which Craig called an epic dungeon, the game fell apart. Again, he got you again.
Done it again! You dirty bastard, you've done it again!
Craig just got sick of running Pathfinder and sulked for a few months about how inconvenient the system was. Eventually, he found himself back and announced that we would change the system, because why not? Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition was up next. And again, we're just rolling along with it. Why? Why? I don't understand. Naturally, we had to basically redo our characters from scratch, and we did our best to fluff our abilities to fit our themes. It didn't go that well. Basal, who used to be a strange and wonderful witch, became a shaman. Instead of being the nasty badass of curses and disease, he became a glorified healer with a severely crippled familiar. Reba, being a synthesis summoner, had no clear counterpart in 4th edition, so she became a druid. You know, shape-shifting and all that. Jake, whom was actually happy with the change of system, he still loathes Pathfinder to this day due to the crippled monk class, had Embla turn into a warden. Instead of smashing people with fists, she got a big old hammer to pummel her foes into dust. It worked out rather well. Lastly, Mike's Inquisitor became a blackguard variant of the Paladin class. My mouth is agape that everybody's going along with this. Nobody has shit to say to Craig. Like, hey, you turned into a little baby bitch boy for 3 months. I don't really want to, go along with your game for as long as it might last. Which isn't going to be very long. The way that this goes, he's got to change the system again. We got to re-roll our characters into something different. It's so stupid. I got one life. I ain't wasting it here. Anyway, as a bonus of changing systems, Craig sort of understood the need for gear and items when starting a very combat-oriented system. We got to choose a few magical items each, which was amazing. Sadly, those were the only starting items that we were going to get. Yeah, you'll be fine. Loot some corpses. You'll be fine. Anyway, back to the pyramid of highly original four-bearer races. The whole thing was a massive techno-magical death trap filled with bullshit traps and failed attempts at ambient horror. I can't remember everything that happened in there over the course of several sessions, but I will mention a few. Jake's character, Embla, had a cart of stuff that she pulled along with the group. It was filled with resources, food, some equipment needed to survive the depths. When we entered the pyramid, we came across an elevator that took us into the entrance proper. Quickly, the entrance crumbled as the ancient systems had a power outage, sealing us inside. Jake said that his character retrieved a glow lamp from the cart to help with the darkness, and Craig just said, "No, you left the cart at the elevator." Jake, surprised, answered, "No, why would I do that? All the food and stuff is in there." Craig was quite bothered by being questioned by Jake and went, "No, you left it. It would look stupid to bring it along." He shut down any attempts from Jake or the other players. Of course, it would look way too silly to bring a dingy cart into this epic dungeon. No, yeah, that's great. Now all our player characters starve to death and the game is over. You won, Craig. Congratulations, I'm going home. In a few sessions, we were in a completely dark room. We were asked to roll stealth, and we all rolled quite well. He said we heard some sort of grinding noise from an unknown location. He asked us with an evil grin on our face what our characters did. I said that Reba took a weary step forward and lifted her head up in an attempt to hear from where the sound came, hoping to perhaps roll perception. Craig rolled a dice and said, "What's your AC?" Like 18, I answered. "That is not enough," Craig said, his grin widening. Oh, good. Could be walking around with 25 ACs, probably still not enough. Then he went on to describe how Reba was grabbed by some slimy tentacle thing that violently pulled her away into the dark and away from the group. I asked for a save to get free from the unpleasant thingamajig, but was shut down with, "No, Reba doesn't know what's going on." I mean, she probably knows enough to know that you don't want to be wrapped in the giant tentacle, right?
어이데 낙심의 대게로요. 삭신갑 feel good.
The rest of the group navigated the darkness by Reba's confused screams, which took them like 5 minutes. At the end, they found her hanging upside down from the roof in a wide room lit with fires. Craig drew a battle grid, which is necessary when playing 4th edition, and placed Reba's token right in the middle of the utter shit. She was surrounded by, I kid you not, a bunch of demonic little ape things that tried to reach her. Around the ape things were a ring of fire and noxious fumes, and after that, a freaking ditch of dirt. Wow, they're really encamped in this campfire. They took that term quite literally. The rest of the group enter far, far away from her. Initiative starts, and Reba falls down and is immediately downed by the noxious fumes and the ape things. Another one of Craig's classic bullshit battles ensued, spending us all to the utter limit. Those of you whom have played 4th edition know that combat is treated as a steady progression in increasingly difficult encounters over the course of an adventuring day. Craig didn't much care for that, and was content with throwing one-way massive battles at us every adventuring day. Astute readers will most likely realize that Second Wind, a way of regaining HP, does not really favor such designs. What do you mean you can't kill 40 dudes on one health bar? What are you, a baby or something? Later came the epic final showdown with the demonic denizens of the pyramid. Craig had prepared it for a long time indeed. We entered through a gigantic door into a massive spherical room where gravity allowed you to walk on the walls. Pretty lit. There were nodes of pulsating flesh knots like hearts spread out everywhere. significantly less lead. We quickly realized Craig intended to replicate a three-dimensional battle grid, which was built by more skilled designers than him, and Craig spent like an hour in a fumbling attempt to draw this complicated 3D map on a 2D surface. We had a big wax mat we use for that sort of thing. We tried to help him simplify the map, but he accepted no help whatsoever. Yeah, I want to fuck this up all by myself. All right, go ahead, buddy. He drew arrows just about everywhere to represent height differences and interconnected paths. The whole thing was a true blasphemy. When it was finally done, he put our tokens at the entrance and spread out the other tokens to represent the nasty demons inside the Death Sphere. Death Sphere's good, but could we call it Thunderdome? I sort of like that a little better. At the middle of it all was a nasty piece of work, a scythe-wielding witch that had started the obligatory evil monologue. Right in the middle of it, I said, Reba has no reason to listen to this abomination. She cast a spell right at her face. Craig's eyes were lit with hatred, and he said, "Oh, you want to play like that? Sure." Didn't we have the conversation about not interrupting me when I'm monologuing? Like, Craig's a jerk and all that, sure, but OP doesn't do what he's supposed to do either. Everybody sucks, that's how I say it. Craig then prompted everyone to roll for initiative, and of course the enemy won initiative and utterly swarmed us. Now imagine this, dear reader. He had spent an hour preparing a massive battle map, but we only used about 5x5 of it. We were bogged down by a horde of enemies right at the mouth of the entrance, creating a reverse bottleneck for the entire party. When every demon lay dead, we went around to destroy the flesh knots, which I'm sure he intended to be done in a more dynamic way. You know, with mobility being a key factor and action management being important, he played himself and ruined the whole encounter. As a curious side note, we had an NPC with us, a sort of foster uncle of Reba that tagged along. In the middle of the swamped battle, Craig described how he got a sword pierced through his neck, through his body, and out his lower back. Holy shit, we all thought. That guy just died. After the battle, Craig berated us for not healing the NPC because he was actually alive the whole time and was doing his death saves. Yeah, nice going. He made it sound like it was our fault. I mean, nobody wants to waste a healing spell on the corpse, you know, just to check. After cleansing the pyramid, we reached the central control room. We were showered in plot by some ancient AI entity. The AI described our true selves, Reba being some sort of light goddess from a faraway dimension, Basal an avatar of the god of balance between life and death, Michael, fragments of a god of justice. Hey, this sounded mightily familiar to the plot of my parallel running Anima campaign, which, yeah, it was. It was a shameless ripoff. As a final insult to Jake's character, whom Craig despised, he revealed that she was not a goddess, but just a temple guard to some fire gods. Playing favorites is truly a virtue. Some things never change, and you'd think eventually some people would get the message. I can't wait to get to the next part, though, where finally it's over for real, for real. Craig out here handing everybody a shit sandwich, and they just take a bite. They're like, I better not say anything. Come on, you deserve better, don't you? Anyway, the AI left after showing us some wish-making machine to create magical artifacts. You know, instead of giving us proper loot and stuff, to give us a decent chance at survival, he had to make this complicated system for fabricating said items. The system involves spending some sort of magical currency and writing a short story to Craig about what we wanted. Dear Santa Craig, I want to be invincible and invisible. I call it invincible. Okay, cool. Sure, you got that now. Oh, I'm so cool now. I can do whatever I want in my mind. Yeah, you could have done that without the piece of paper. Without wasting hours of your life. Whatever. It's fine. Super fun and cool. The wish-making machine was never used, as Craig put the campaign on permanent ice. Again, dude. And I'm sure everybody's shocked again.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
He claimed to have lost inspiration and lamented how his initial steampunk setting had devolved into generic European fantasy. Well, you did that all by yourself, I'm afraid. Craig went on to obsess over other game systems and made a few failed attempts at running other campaigns. I finished being a player in his campaigns and had no interest in joining. There we go. 3 times? That's what it takes to learn our lesson? It's not bad. I've seen worse. Good job, OP. Proud of you. Growing those balls and backbone. Coming along nicely. Like a couple of great big juicy plums. What I heard from the players was more of the same as described herein. There we go. Another anticlimax from Craig's Forge of Wonders. There's one part left, which takes place after my Anima campaign had ended, and we joined up for a one-shot module. Oh my god! It's like Mr. Bones' Wild Ride. You think it's over, they pull you back in. It is about Craig's ultimate meltdown and how he left the group for good. Let me hear if you want to read about it. Yeah, sure, why not? TLDR, Game Master oversells his own setting and mismanages it into oblivion, making sure to create as bumpy a ride as possible. Yeah, he did that twice, and everybody just sat there for it. But I'm glad reality is finally starting to penetrate some skulls, you know? You love to see that. Maybe it's not too late. Anyway, let's get into the last part and see how all this ends. We're running long today, but I think it's fine. Craig's Meltdown, an exercise in lack of self-awareness for finale. The story's a long time coming. Been busy with, life and stuff. Anyway, here comes the concluding part of the saga of Craig, an exercise in lack of self-awareness, part 4. If you've not read the earlier parts already, here are some links. The concluding part takes place after Craig left the Anima Beyond Fantasy campaign described in part 1, and well after the train wreck that was his own 2 campaigns as described in parts 2 and 3. At this stage in our lives, we were all well through our university education, with just a few years left to go. Yeah, so not well through it. Well halfway through it. Craig had at this time remarked a lack of time to enjoy the glorious role-playing hobby. His reasons were always vague and unclear, but I digress. He got himself a waifu pillow. He's putting in some quality time. You wouldn't get it. During a winter, our regular campaigns, without Craig, had taken a small break for exams and stuff. To let loose some steam and take the pressure off our studies, I quickly threw together a Hunter the Vigil, New World of Darkness by White Wolf game. The idea was to use a pre-made scenario, which I'd never done before, to minimize planning time. If you want to try the module, you can look for Blood Drive, a scenario in the Hunter the Vigil storytelling adventure system. In essence, it's about a group of hunters that have to escort a vampire from New York to Chicago. In essence, the scenario is a not always so cozy road trip. The scenario was a total blast and lauded by my stressed out friends. Okay, neato. The problem arose when I, in my utmost ignorance, decided to run another module with the same system. This time, including Craig. Yeah, see, that's the part where why?
Why?
Why? Why'd you do that? Why? When I pitched the idea of running Murder Will Out, another Hunter the Vigil game, Craig was positively brimming with excitement. Jake and Jacob, whom you might remember from the previous parts of the saga of Craig, reused their old characters, which are not really relevant to the story. Tom, a new guy that participated in Blood Drive, also reused his character. Craig, on the other hand, made one of the worst characters I've ever had the displeasure of seeing in action. And yet still, you let him play in your campaign. I was mistaken. I thought you had some big heavy plums. They're just wrinkly little grapes. They could grow. They're budding, which is nice. But we got a ways to go. Anyway, Craig's character was called Elijah Dante Ramsey, and he was a bit of an abrasive douche. Seeing how the time available to prepare a decent character was limited, just a week or so, Craig went into the wish fulfillment zone in the deep recesses of his addled mind. Elijah was a pretty boy private investigator. He had left the police force because he thought they were too strict and that they followed the rules too much. This character is delightfully cringe already. Elijah was decidedly a quasi-vigilante that worked the streets. He was also a master seducer, gunman, and general badass. Woven tightly into his backstory was Craig's idealized waifu, a sickly, powerless girl without legs that lived in a hospital. What the fuck?
Well, different strokes for different folks.
Yes, I'd like to medicate my wife. It's just easier this way. I show up during visiting hours or I don't. Wow. She was, of course, incredibly pretty and submissive, just the way Craig likes it. I cannot remember her name, but Craig's character referred to her as Dollface. Shudder. He's doing that thing. Does he walk around saying, "Meh," all the time? Yeah, we gotta go get him, Muggsy. Meh. Maybe I like the character a little bit. Turning your badge, Ramsey. You don't play by the rules. Well, they're not playing by the rules either, see? Meh. I think Craig found her when he worked a case. Back then, she had legs and was the typical golden-hearted toot with a heavy narcotics problem that Elijah helped her out of. Yeah, he could fix her. Nobody else could fix her, but he did. He had set up Dollface to be 100% dependent on Elijah for just about everything. He sent me a picture of a half-nude, blonde anime girl taking a shower and said, "Yep, that's her. Well, she doesn't have legs anymore, but you can imagine that girl minus 2 legs." Yeah, thanks, Craig. Thanks a bunch for sharing. Is he a stump worshipper? Dude, Craig is into some shit, let me tell you that. So in essence, Craig just wanted to play a wish fulfillment discount James Bond badass that got all the girls and shot all the bad guys. Okay, no harm in that, really. The problem arises when you fail to separate your character from yourself, and that would be Craig's ultimate downfall. He gets rejected in real life, and then he gets rejected in the game. I can't handle it anymore. I thought OP invited me over so we could role play it out like we used to, you know? Anyway, the scenario at hand was about a possessed hospital that had burrowed its tendrils into the minds of a group of psychos, turning their murderous instincts up to 11. Following the flow of the scenario, the hunters would investigate these lunatics and find the common denominator, the hospital. They were then supposed to enter the hospital, purge the living bejesus out of it, and slide through a trash chute with the hospital exploding and Eldritch Magnus in the background. I'm not too sure about that last part, actually. Central pre-made NPC was Franklin Kim. He was a police detective that had come into contact with some of these strange supernatural events, courtesy of the psychos and their demon hospital patron. And he also acted as a primary contact for the hunters. Now, Franklin was a hot-blooded guy with severe anger issues, and he was also a bit of a condescending dick. He'd be sarcastic and demeaning to the hunters, calling out their lack of respect for legal rules and so forth. I don't know how many cops you've met, and especially police detectives, but yeah, they are kind of condescending dicks. I made it very clear that Franklin was obviously stressed out of his mind and that they shouldn't take it personally. The sensible hunters just nodded in agreement, while Craig clenched his fists in white-hot rage anytime Can't Do Wrong Pretty Boy Elijah was openly challenged. I mean, he does seem to be pretty open about his mental challenges. Elijah, of course, thought Franklin was a bit of a condescending bastard. I mean, Craig, not Elijah. Oh wait, no, they both hated that guy. I always forget that Craig and Elijah were both more or less interchangeable. I want to save my editor's sanity, and his name's Elijah, so I'm going to call him Craig for the rest of the post, okay? We don't want to talk ill of Elijah. Elijah does a lot of good work around here. He's done it for many years. It's me and him, essentially running the whole fucking show, and Arif too. Anywho, the scenario went along for the evening. The hunters poked about, investigated, and were attacked in a parking lot by a cannibal homeless woman with a magical machete. The usual stuff. Things were going nicely. What was magical about the machete? Vorpal blade, dude. Gotta watch out, Vorpal blade. One of these psychopathic killers was an old man that had received a potent gift from the demon in the hospital, a pen that allowed him to write letters of which the content was always perceived as the truth, or something along those lines. The old man used his gift to manipulate people into ending their spouses or themselves or other horrible things. I set it up so Franklin Kim received a letter from the old man because the old man was slowly getting clued in about his and the hunters' involvement. The letter to Kim said that the hunters were conspiring with his enemies. Franklin, being as stressed as all hell, decided to confront the hunters about the contents of the letter. He called them to an empty parking lot in the marina, and when they showed up, he screamed at them and demanded answers. Yeah, now that's good police investigating. No subtlety at all. The more sensible of the hunters, by that I mean not Craig, managed to calm him down and change his mind. They had clues that there was someone with the ability to manipulate people on an incredibly high level around, and that Franklin must have been victimized. The idea was that the hunters would get the letter, which contained clues from where it was sent, and eventually this would lead to the old man lunatic. After Franklin had calmed down, the dialogue went something like this. Franklin said, "Oh, damn, I've been totally played. I'm so sorry." Sensible hunter, "It's fine, dude. So you help us catch this guy?" Franklin, "Yeah, of course. Now it's fucking personal." Sensible hunter 2, "Okay, so we're all friends then, so get in the car." Franklin sits down in the front passenger seat, and Craig says, "Hey, you sit in the back. I sit shotgun." Franklin, "What was that?" "I said you sit in the back." "Dude, what?" "You sit in the back." Craig, "No, you go sit in the back, you mother effer!" It was about then that one of Franklin's blood vessels visibly engorged. Franklin says, "You know what? Fuck you. You can't tell me what to do. Unlike you, I'm a real detective. You're just a dropout nobody. You can't tell me shit I don't already know, so sit down in the back and shut the hell up." And here, we freeze time for a moment. You see, Franklin's sitting in the front passenger seat with the door open and yelling at Craig. Craig is stomping his feet like a petulant child, and across the table, real-life Craig is seething with fury. Now we look at Craig's character sheet. Note the distinct lack of dots in required skills that might qualify one to work with the police. His academic score, 0. Computer, 0. Medicine, 0. Politics, 0. Brawl, 0. Larceny, 0. Intimidation, 0. Survival, 0. Socialize, 0. Gosh, where does the character end and the real Craig begin? By all rules of the game, he could never work as a police officer. I had explicitly said this to Craig during character creation. I said, this guy couldn't be a cop. You have to rearrange his skills. And Craig said, okay, whatever. I guess he just cheated his way through exams and dropped out as soon as he could or something. And I answered, okay, sure, but then he won't really have any good contacts within the police department. Craig just went, whatever, and wrote in the backstory that his character had graduated with top marks. Best of the class. Best of class, my ass. That's what cheating will get you. It'll take you all the way to the top. Anyway, time resumes, and Craig's character pulls a gun from the holster with his quick draw skill and points it at Franklin's face. Dude, over a seat? You just want to sit in the front that bad? Sure, okay. Fucking psycho. Sensible hunters all say, why don't we calm down here? Craig, put the gun away. Franklin, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Are you gonna shoot me? Craig, get out of the car. You sit in the back. Sensible Hunter 3 pops in. Stop it! We're doing exactly what the psychos want! Franklin starts laughing. You know what? No. You are not gonna shoot me just because I won't sit in the back. Now put that thing away and let's go. Then Craig pulls the trigger, shooting Franklin straight through the right kneecap. Motherfucker! Craig then drags Franklin out of the car and onto the parking pavement. You don't speak to me that way. Now shut up before I take your other knee. Dude, you can't... What? Your character's a maniac, you realize that. Franklin's howling in pain and says, you done it now, you little shit. They're gonna take you away for good. Police sirens in the distance, reacting to the gunshot. Franklin starts laughing and crying like a crazy person. See? They're gonna nail you so bad, you fucking poser! Craig sits down in the front passenger seat and says, "Oh, let's go then. We don't need him anymore." Yeah, this is how things work. Sensible Hunter 1 says, "No, we're not going to try and outrun the cops. You got to drop the gun and try not to make this any worse." Police patrol car arrives. 2 officers step out with their service weapons drawn. Policeman, "Drop the gun! Step out of the vehicle! On your knees and keep your hands where we can see them!" At that point, Craig complains that the police showed up on site excessively quick.
Oh, and you're a regular Rhodes Scholar. Where was it you graduated from again? The University of Duh?
You could do like some sick parkour off the building, can't you? Or just faceplant into the pavement. I guess that'll fix it too. Franklin screams in crazy triumph and adrenaline. "You really think I'd come in here alone? I was prepared to take you all in. You really done fucked up now." In a sudden urge of uncharacteristic clarity, Craig realizes that shooting his way out of this situation is impossible. He drops his gun and obeys the officers, who proceed to cuff him and put him in the backseat of a patrol car. Now we go back to the table. Out of character. IRL. Well, Craig is just absolutely fuming with poorly veiled rage. He asks if we should just leave, seeing how his character was just put out of commission, and I replied that that was not necessarily the case, and that perhaps the other hunters would be able to talk with Franklin and have him release Craig. Craig would have none of that, of course, and just started packing up in a very hasty fashion. One of the other players said that he didn't have to leave, and that they would indeed try to get his character out, but their promises fell on deaf ears, and Craig went into the hallway to get dressed in his outdoor clothing. Whatever, good riddance to bad rubbish, I say. The table was silent for a while until I asked, "So, what do you guys do now?" Nobody even cares he left. That's beautiful. Slowly the game started going again, and then suddenly Craig storms into the room once more, fully dressed to leave. What follows was more or less incoherent screaming and accusations. To start off with, we were all spiteful idiots and bad people. Myself in particular was some form of monster that had it out for him in particular. I stated in my defense that there had to be consequences for everything, and that I was sorry he had taken it so personally. Separating the self from the character is essential, after all. Apparently that wasn't good enough for him, and he laid on me all manner of accusations. I was a terrible GM, horrid friend, I made fun of him and harassed and persecuted him. I was utterly stunned. Never once had he said a bad thing about me, at least not to my face that I know of. On numerous occasions, I had asked for feedback, like, "Do you like this type of scenario? Was it too weird?" Yes, it's super weird, but I like it. Take your shirt off. My character puts on his robe and wizard hat. Is there anything you'd like to do different in the future? And not once did Craig have anything bad to say. See, he didn't have any balls either. He just kept saying how fantastic everything was. Judging from his meltdown, that was not the case, and everything he had kept locked away just poured out like spiteful vitriol from his mouth. The other players were shocked as well, positively stunned into silence. Yeah, he's got a lot of rage inside of him, doesn't he? You're a bottler. You don't need to bottle so much. Let off some steam before it explodes like this. It's stupid. Now you just made yourself look like a whole asshole, okay? Craig finished his tantrum with the words, "I never want to play with you again. You in particular." And he pointed at OP. Then he ran out of the apartment and slammed the door as hard as he possibly could, probably waking up the neighbors in the process. We were silent for a little while. Then Jacob spoke in a deadpan voice. "Well, shit. Oh, let's play around the Munchkin to calm ourselves down." Yeah, nobody's actually gonna miss Craig, are they? We did just that, and it was awesome. Munchkin is a great game. Yes, finally, a good fucking game. The morning after, Craig erased all contact points with the other players and myself. He went completely AWOL and was nowhere to be found. Those of us that remained were more or less relieved that Craig had left. He was our friend, sure, but one of those friends that take energy rather than give energy. You know. Yeah, the emotion vampires. The whole ordeal gave not only me, but the entire group a whole different perspective. Together, we pieced together the puzzle of Craig. Not that it made us much wiser. At least we concurred that, yeah, he was a bit of a weird guy. I mean, you're all sort of weird guys. And it's fine to be a weird guy. I'm a weird guy too, but within limits. You understand? He was weird enough to warrant a small series on some subreddit at the very least. Sometimes we talk about his shenanigans as a warning example, but I can't say we've actually suffered any lasting damage. He made us stronger, if nothing else, and saved us a whole lot of energy drainage with his absence. I have no idea what happened to Craig after all this. He just disappeared into the mists of life. At one point, I know he got a girlfriend. I just hope he realizes that his own bizarre ideals are incompatible with reality and that he treats her well. Does she have no legs and live in a hospital? If not, then that's not his ideal. Whatever. Hopefully he'll grow up and realize that neither Dollface nor Ray is the best girl. They're just idealized versions of something that is best kept where it belongs, in our fantasies. It's not a bad note to end it on. That's all, folks. See you around! TLDR, that guy player's overexcited about a game, then proceeds to paint himself into a corner by kneecapping a police officer, then flips out and accuses the whole group of conspiring against him, willfully terminating his place in the gaming group in the process. Yeah, that escalated quickly. That really got out of hand fast. But it is somewhat the best ending possible. Craig got out and about. He met a lady of his very own, like a real lady, not one that's drawn on a piece of paper. That's pretty neat, huh? That feels pretty cool sometimes, doesn't it? Yeah, it seems like it all turned out for the best. Craig definitely a bit of a weird guy, but it seems like he managed to swing it around. And even for all the shit that I talked about OP, or basically anybody else in the story except for Jacob, I hope that everybody's doing well, you know? It's been a while since this was posted. We've been through some ups and some downs, haven't we? Well, as long as you come out the other side stronger for it, that's what truly matters. Either you as an individual or you as a gaming group. It's whatever you want to do. But anyways, I do hope that you guys enjoyed this episode thoroughly. If you did, like, comment, sub, share it around. Maybe join up on the Patreon or the YouTube memberships. I'd appreciate that a heck of a lot. We got merch over on my Fourth Wall shop. Got some new designs going up shortly. If I find the time today, then they might be there and I'll pin a comment. But regardless of if you decide to do any of those things or not, I hope that the rest of your day is just as good as it can possibly be. Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it, and I shall see you in the next one. So until then, bye-bye.